comes to professional wrestling, if you are talking about it, we are talking about it. Welcome to the WrestleChat Podcast with the AntMan.
Glitches and codes and mysterious messages. Oh my. Welcome to the second episode of a new season of the WrestleChat Podcast. I'm your host, the AntMan. Thanks so much for dropping in to hang out with us for a little bit. If he seems, well, a tad angry today, it's because he just found out that sponge baths have ended. The Glavalanche. Michael Glavin, good to have you back, my man. How you feeling?
It's good to be back, man. Thanks so much for all the love this week. Thanks to JR, man. Yeah. You know, when you sit on the sidelines and you watch somebody come in and just kill it like JR did, man, I was like, man, I think I just need to come back to being a spectator. But no, thanks to him for holding down the fort. Great episode last week, and man, a lot has happened. In wrestling over the last week or two, and man, it's just great to be back and jumping in talking about it with you.
JR does it for a living. He should be good. That's the thing. As always, if you're watching live, you're invited to chime in on anything that we're chatting about today. Drop us a comment. We'll share it here on the show. Check in and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're watching anytime after Saturday morning or listening after Saturday morning, we invite you to join in on the conversation still. Just simply drop a comment on this episode about anything that we are talking about, or maybe even more importantly, things that we're not talking about, something you want to bring up. We'd love to hear those too. Drop us a comment here or a message on Instagram. We're at WrestleChat Podcast. Man, there are so many things that we need to get to, so many places to begin. I say we just pick one and get rolling. Michael, how about we start with the WWE Draft? That chaos begins in less than a week. Next Friday, blue, red, and judging from the logo, possibly the gold get to bid on acquiring the services of many superstars to join their brand. If, in fact, the gold swoosh in the logo means that NXT is going to be involved in this year's draft, that's a nice little wrinkle with this new administration. That has the potential to really elevate WWE's third brand leading into their move to the CW later this year. That could be really big. But I still wonder if the WWE draft means most of the time and not all of the time, Michael. I will say, to me, it's felt like this past year, the WWE draft has meant more than previous years. Stars, for the most part, staying true to the brand that they belong to. However, we would still get, like a trade here and there, randomly a wild card night, and we'd see, superstars swap shows. That is actually something that happens in, traditional professional sports, but they have a certain time frame and a deadline. So let's say football. I think if they have a deadline and a time frame for free agents. I think if WWE goes that direction, it'd be great to mark a night, another special night mid-season that leads to a trade deadline for possible free agents, possibly maybe even stipulations in matches that make you a free agent. Tie stories with potential free agency. That'd be an interesting little turn with things they've done here in the past. I will say I'm more optimistic about this year's draft than any other. What say you, man?
It's a deep topic. And, if you go back a year or roughly a year, we had a lot of conversation about the WWE draft last year when it was coming around. And this was in the middle of some recent regime changes, as the way the timeline goes. And so here's what's interesting, and here's what I would take this little moment to talk about. Pre-WrestleMania, just a few weeks ago, we thought we had seen the new regime and their methods and storytelling and everything already in gear and playing out among us. And if there's something WrestleMania showed us this year, is that that's not the case. WrestleMania was the kickoff for this new regime, for this new staff, the way they're going to run things, the way they're going to do things. We have seen just a complete shift in everything since WrestleMania. And so going back a year and saying, well, they've mostly adhered to the draft. Well, yeah, that is a true statement. I can tell you that my expectations are simultaneously super high and missing in action all at the same time, because how do you make the draft fresh? How do you, what do you do with it? But at the same time, I'm looking at the last couple weeks, mainly since WrestleMania, and I'm like, man, it feels like there's a plan for everything. And so with these new logos, to your point, the gold swoosh, maybe how that plays into everything, how we're seeing so much more of an approach to be more professional sports driven in the presentation and the way they address things, the superstar walk-ins, into the arena. All these different little threads that we're pulling on, I think we could see a very, very different draft that actually, to your point, has implications all throughout the year instead of just the Yahtzee container once a year. So I'm really excited to see what becomes of all this, because the potential of it under this new regime is super, super high.
Yeah, great analogy with the Yahtzee one. I was thinking cards too. If you're a card counter, you're sitting there counting cards, and all of a sudden a brand new deck gets brought in and a brand new dealer, and that's what it feels like. It's all shuffled, and we have no idea what to expect, but I'm here for it. Chime in with your thoughts on next week's draft, and we'll share them here on the show. As I alluded to at the top of the show, we saw more glitches and the addition of QR codes that have led to mysterious messages on both Raw and SmackDown this week. These are messages and signs that they're not unfamiliar. There was a certain strange character that emerged from a rabbit hole a couple of years ago, but unfortunately, we lost the man behind that character unexpectedly last year. The ending of the Bray Wyatt documentary led many of us to believe that the lantern still had plenty of flame. The only question was, who would be the person to carry it? Let's look at this. We haven't seen Braun Strowman in WWE in quite some time, at least in the ring. Alexa Bliss left on maternity leave, but that's been a while. Talk of her possibly coming back. There was news about Eric Rowan this week regarding him having to pull out of independent shows due to, quote, contractual obligations. When I was a kid, I used to love to take a pencil or a crayon and start at 1, and I'd go to 2 and 3, 4, 5, and connect the dots. So if I'm doing that here, I'm hoping that the finished picture is a new Wyatt family. Lantern being carried by Bray's brother Bo or Uncle Howdy. Michael, are the signs pointing to the same outcome for you, or are you connecting dots for a different picture?
I definitely think that is the low-hanging fruit, and I think that is deeper than anything storytelling, deeper than anything on the surface of wrestling. I think we hope, just us as people, that we get to live in this universe of the creation of Bray Wyatt. I think all of us, myself included, want anything that can come from that. Obviously, just because of the heartache and the hurt and everything that came from losing Bray way too early. So yes, that is the hope. What I do know is that those guys, Bray, Bo, these guys were exceptionally creative individuals. And what we do know is that there was a lot of things in place for Bray Wyatt as he was coming back, in stories that were going to be told. And so the silver lining to a very horrible and sad situation is that, Wyndham left us threads of what he was going to do, and almost like a blueprint for how other people could carry this story on. And so whatever that looks like, however it comes, we know it's coming. I mean, it would be very strange that these things that we're seeing would not be related to, Bray Wyatt or the Wyatt family. And so I'm very excited. I'm very anxious to see all of this come to fruition. If nothing else, then it's hard to put words to it, but maybe the only one I can grab right now is it's going to be kind of therapeutic or cathartic in some type of way to see this continue on, even in an unfortunate absence.
Yeah. Where are those glitches headed? We have to wait and see. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the process of seeing how they evolve the teasing. I think it's kind of cool. Chime in on the chat today. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to share those here on the show. Bad news for Rhea fans this week. Michael and I both included in that group as Rhea fans. Rhea is out and has relinquished her Women's World Championship. Rhea, as close to tears as I think that we're ever going to see, was her on Monday. She'd held that title for just over a year, winning the SmackDown Women's title from Charlotte Flair back at WrestleMania 39. Of course, that title was swapped out for the newly established women's world title this past fall. A new champion is going to be crowned on Monday in a battle royal. A match that, would typically lend itself to either someone within a faction, maybe with people to watch your back, or possibly someone of size. I mean, the objective of it is to get them over the top rope. But the story with Rhea involves someone who is neither. Liv Morgan, she's on her revenge tour, but is she gearing up for a champions tour? Or does someone like Becky step up to carry the torch once again? Michael, we're going to find out on Monday, but how are you feeling about it right now?
I'm frustrated, Ant. I'm really frustrated. I have to trust the process. I have to trust that whatever information is available about her behind the scenes is accurate. I would say that I do join a little bit with wrestling Twitter to say that I don't quite understand the express and the rush to have her drop the title. When we were okay with part-time champions, when we were okay with, Seth, kind of limping along into Mania as he was, having knee issues. A lot of titles changed hands that, our WWE undisputed champion, Cody Rhodes is gonna be on TV all the time. I think we had room to have a part-time champion for a little while, to let Rhea carry that forward. But I also recognize that sometimes you don't have all the information, and maybe she was around the corner to dropping it for some reason anyway. Maybe it was, moving up a storyline. I don't know, but for the workhorse that she's been this last year, it was a frustrating ending for me as a big fan of hers. And so again, I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust the powers that be, and I'm going to grit my teeth, smile, and move on to another day.
Well, what's interesting with Monday is it left me excited for when she comes back. Whoever's holding it should already be scared before they even hold that title. So chime in. Who do you see being the woman to beat come Monday night? Hit us up. Do we have a new bloodline? Well, you know what? It's looking like it, but at this point, all I know for sure is Solo got some new threads. We're going to chat about that and those new titles that were presented this week coming up. But speaking of titles, we've got a chance for you to score your own replica title. Here, check this out.
Damian Priest now has the world title. Cody finished the story to take home the undisputed title. So the question is, which one are you taking home? We're giving you your pick. Just make sure you've subscribed to the WrestleChat Podcast on YouTube. That's it. Once we hit 10,000 subscribers, we'll draw one winner who will take their pick and take home their own WWE replica title. If you've already subbed, be sure to tell a friend. The quicker we get to 10K, the quicker we draw a winner. Take home the gold with the WrestleChat Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe today.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us here today on the WrestleChat Podcast. Love that you have you've joined in. If you're watching this after Saturday morning, thanks for checking out the podcast. We really appreciate that. If you are watching it afterwards or listening to it after we're doing it live, drop a comment on this episode. Let us know where you're watching from, where you're listening from. Appreciate you being a part of the chat this morning. Listen, if it were a ZZ Top song, it might start out with these lyrics. Black suit, red square, still with a look as if he doesn't care. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't rewrite the lyrics to Sharp Dressed Man for Solo Sikoa, but there's no denying that there's something going on in the bloodline, one that none of us have a clue about yet. And how could we when it appears that even the wise man is confused about what's happening? Last week, we saw Solo hug his brother, Jimmy Uso, only to stand by and then watch him be attacked by a hooded figure. After Solo, jammed his thumb into Jimmy's neck, we saw the hooded figure uncover to introduce a new member, Tama Tonga. Confident that his name was on that big giant tree that The Rock showed at that press conference thing, right? Jimmy's out, and Paul soaked his trousers. Fast forward 7 days, Solo shows up to SmackDown dressed much differently. Dressed like a man in charge, like a boss, although not the final boss, in a suit, asking where Kevin Owens was. Later in the show, Thomas shows up with Kevin. Kevin's soaked in blood. Kevin has been a little more than a fringe story with the bloodline in the past. However, it looks as though these actions are a sign that his number has been called by the tribal chief, whoever that might be these days. Michael, the bloodline continuing to be an intriguing story within the WWE. Give me your take on all this.
Ooh, okay. Let's
you don't have to say no. I know you had surgery.
If you guys have lunch in the oven, forget about it. It's going to burn. We're going to be here a while. So here's the thing. Last week, when all this started to kind of take shape, you expected the bloodline to drop into a different gear, maybe disappear for a while. Well, we saw this shift, with Solo and Tama Tonga, and so I'm like, okay, all right, and we're buying time, we're whatever, and you see last week that Solo's kind of calling the shots, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be very honest with everybody. I was like, okay, all right, sure, we got to do something. Roman needs some time off. He's gonna film some movies. We got to get ready for the next thing. This will cover us in the meantime. Okay, whatever. We fast forward a week. Whoa, hold on. Dude looks good in a suit. Hold on. Wait, he's talking to Paul Heyman, and he's and he there's some bass to his voice. Hold on a minute. Walking around, calling shots, doing stuff, whatever, and I'm like, hold on. Do I think Solo's the tribal chief? Because
the guy who hasn't spoke ever.
Because it's feeling like he's the tribal chief now. And I'm kind of here for it. Like, there's confusion, it's like, it was almost like mentally cheating on my tribal chief, with another tribal chief, entanglement and such. So I don't know what happened, but we just shifted into another gear, and it feels amazing. And whatever they're cooking, whatever they're cooking, I'm here for it, because I don't know where it's going. I don't know if we're talking multiple bloodlines. I don't know if we're talking struggle for one bloodline, classic black and white Wolfpack MWO type stuff. I don't know what we're doing, but I'm here for it. So
they change the color, we'll know, right?
Great TV over the last week. Great progression of storytelling. Man, the presentation of Tama Tonga, for the majority of people not knowing necessarily who he was. Looks like we got a comment here. Home Wrestling League, there's some confusion, but Roman has been favoring him for a couple of months now. That is true. We have been looking to Solo in several moments and things like that. So that's a great point. But wherever we're headed, it's very cool. And the way they set up Tama Tonga, with how strong he looks, with just how kind of over he seems within the bloodline, how serious he is, and an established figure he is after a week. It's just incredible work by everybody. So good job to the writing team. Good job to everybody on screen. Just amazing.
Thank you, Home Wrestling team, for chiming in. Where do you guys see this going? Who, in fact, is the tribal chief? You can chime in on the chat and give us your thoughts or drop us a message. Michael, the bloodline, without gold for the time being. However, I'm sure their eyes, along with anyone else with a partner, are staring at some newly released gold. Monday night, we saw Awesome Truth trade in their Raw tag titles for the newly created World Tag Team titles. Round, gold plates, splash of red in the banners. They look sharp. Overshadowed slightly by R-Truth's confusion, thinking Triple H was Tommaso Ciampa trying to trick him. When clarity actually finally came, Awesome Truth strutted out with new straps, ones that you can now purchase replicas of on the WWE shop. How convenient is that? Fast forward to the second segment of SmackDown last night, and we see the same. You got the title stand in the middle of the ring. This time, Nick Aldis brings out Triple H. I don't know about you, but I was halfway expecting to see similar titles that were just given to Awesome Truth. maybe splashed with blue banners. This is kind of what we were typical to seeing, something very similar, and those given to A-Town Down Under. However, no. They did get new titles, the WWE Tag Team titles, but they look nothing like the world titles. They had the old school look and the feel of the WWF titles that guys like Demolition carried back in the early 90s. Michael, I was impressed with the direction what they did with these titles, and I'm going to go out on a limb, although I don't think it's way far out to say that you were impressed too.
I am a sucker for a good callback to a good title.
Yeah.
It's no secret that over the last decade or two, there's been some disappointment in the way some titles look. I understand that branding is important, and making sure that we have the most prominent W's on, these straps are important. But we are definitely getting new titles from a guy who is very clearly a fan of wrestling history.
Agreed.
And very clearly that has love of the business. Because the first set of titles from Raw was great. They were still really round. I was like, okay, it's honoring to where they're coming from, but they look good. They've got depth. They've got pizzazz. Like, they actually look like a title should, instead of like, that machine where you go to like the old Wild West worlds and you stick a penny in and you do the crank thing and it kind of comes out like a belt buckle or something like that. Well, more or less that. But SmackDown, I feel bad for Awesome Truth because wow. The WWE Tag Team Championships just look phenomenal. It looks super sharp, vintage, but not old by any stretch of the imagination. So it made my heart happy. I definitely popped. If you go back to our text messages from last night, it's lots of capitalization, lots of exclamation points. It was very, very, very cool to see those come out. So it was a great night for those of us that really love those belts.
Yeah, make sure them W's is prominent in them belts too. Collectors, let me know if these are straps that you plan on adding to your collection soon, or if you're not a collector yet and you want to be. If this is something you plan on jumping with both feet into. What do you think of the new World and WWE Tag Team titles? Drop a comment and chime in here today. Backlash in France is starting to take shape with a now confirmed WWE title match. It's going to be Cody's first as the new champ, and he'll take on AJ Styles now, but nothing about AJ's qualifying match with LA Knight leads me to believe that things are over between these two. Not that, that Dusty has to be brought up in every Cody match, but it is interesting to note that AJ had a chance to face Dusty over in TNA, and it was for a title, for the NWA Championship. That was one that many IWC sleuths were quick to bring up after AJ's win last night. Not that the fight with Cody's father is the way to go when it comes to storytelling, but I am interested to see what story they weave here over the next couple of weeks with these two, and how or if LA Knight gets involved somehow. What are you thinking, Michael?
I think AJ Styles is a beautiful first opponent for Cody Rhodes. You're going to get entertaining wrestling. You're going to get, boy, how do I even approach this? It's just a good fit. Do I legitimately think that AJ stands a chance of taking the strap off of Cody? No, I really don't. However, AJ feels like a credible threat. He's doing really great work right now. His stuff with LA Knight has been absolutely fantastic. I love AJ Styles. I'm an AJ Styles fan to my core anyway, but I feel like this is going to be a fantastic match for a great pay-per-view as it's taking shape. I'm really looking forward to seeing these two guys work together. Possibilities of this match are just endless.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Speaking of pay-per-views, we've got a couple of dandies this weekend. We'll run over those and we'll discuss the return of the Celtic Warrior Sheamus when we come back. Stay right here on the WrestleChat Podcast.
Do you ever just want to sit back and talk movies, TV, and sports with your friends? Well, I've got something special for you. Check out the Man-Child Chronicles podcast, where four friends hang out and talk everything entertainment and sports. Come and join Ryan, John, Mike, and Jay for a new episode, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. The Man-Child Chronicles. Growing up never took so long. now has the world title. Cody finished the story to take home the undisputed title. So the question is, which one are you taking home? We're giving you your pick. Just make sure you've subscribed to the WrestleChat Podcast on YouTube. That's it. Once we hit 10,000 subscribers, we'll draw one winner who will take their pick and take home their own WWE replica title. If you've already subbed, be sure to tell a friend. The quicker we get to 10K, the quicker we draw a winner. Take home the gold with the WrestleChat Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe today.
Monday night, the lights got brighter on Raw. Not because of another production change. No. It was because we saw the Great White Shark return, because we welcomed back Sheamus. Boy, that's a reflection from that guy. Many trolls jumped on X to comment on the shape of Sheamus. Trolls that clearly have no mirrors in their home, or if they do, they simply haven't gotten up from their Cheeto-stained couch to glance at recently. Yes, Sheamus looked a little differently than he used to. However, the dude was nearly put on the shelf, like for real. He battled through to come back. So dare I say Sheamus will more than likely, for the rest of his life, be in better shape than I will ever be, even on his worst day. I'm more concerned, though, with the direction of Sheamus. Michael, I'll be honest, I'm lost. And for good reason. I mean, he's a star that I'm at least confident about with this new regime. But I just don't know what they're going to do with him. And it's not because of anyone's failure, but is it a repackage? Is it a run outside of the WWE like we've seen with many others? Could Sheamus be a part of a working relationship with TNA? Maybe we see him go over there and just create new feuds that cross that barrier back and forth. Help me out here. How are you feeling about Sheamus? Not what the internet likes to talk about right now, but what do you do with a guy that feels like it's kind of just been floating along for a while?
I think your questions are valid. I don't know what they're cooking up, but they definitely, I go back to trust the process. They put him back out there for a reason. And whether it's, a run as he's going to close out his career, whether they want him to be a staple of the mid card, it was definitely a lot of oomph behind him. And it seems as though it was just out of place when you look at who they're pushing on the rest of the roster. It's a lot of younger guys, a lot of guys that are, haven't seen a lot of story time on TV. I don't dislike Sheamus at all. But kind of something you alluded to is, hey, do we bring in some of these stars who we don't really want to push on our brand because we're focused on the next generation, but do we loan them out to TNA and have really great television feuds and create working relationships with the rest of the wrestling community? And that's a very captivating thought that I think is more possible now than ever. I sent you a tweet, I believe last night, of Jordan Grace from TNA and Natalia talking on X. And, Jordan Grace saying, hey, I'd love for you to come over to TNA and wrestle in my house. And Natty said, let's do it. Well, I don't think that Natty would just go out on a limb and say something like that unless there was some type of permission or some type of culture that is fostering that type of thing. And with seeing Jordan Grace, recently in the Rumble, maybe that's a thing. And building it back to the point of Sheamus, I'm not going to say that they're putting him on TV solely to farm him out. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the WWE is doing a great job at maximizing their resources everywhere. Not just in WWE, but possibly in TNA and other things. There's rumors circulating around other promotions that are starting, and there's a lot of cool things happening. And especially under Nick Khan at the helm of WWE, there are going to be business decisions made for the benefit of the business, not for the protecting of an individual's pride or to try and hoard fame or glory or success if you can. So I'm excited to see what becomes of it. But for Sheamus right now, he came out strong. He looks fantastic despite what the internet says. I'm excited to see him go on another run, whether if it's for, a US title or an Intercon title. Like, the dude's just good. He's great in the ring. So let's enjoy the time that we have with him and let's just see what becomes of it.
I could go for a Sheamus Logan Paul feud. I'd be all right with that.
Yeah,
what would you like to see from Sheamus now that he's back? Chime in. Let us know. Tonight, we got TNA presents Rebellion live on pay-per-view from the Palms in Las Vegas. Moose, the TNA champ, is going to take on Nick Nemeth. Is it possible that Nick wins his first championship outside of WWE tonight? I'm calling it now, and I say yes, even though Moose is almost twice Nick's size. We're also going to see Mustafa Ali take on Jake something. If you haven't seen this guy yet, I'm not talking to Mustafa. I know you've seen him if you've watched any WWE programming, and underutilized many, many times in WWE. But Jake something, I don't know how he's not called up to WWE at some point, but Jake, much like Moose, much bigger than Mustafa, and this is for the X division. Something creative that Mustafa was trying to actually get going this week was a hashtag that was something ain't right, insinuating that Jake something isn't right for the X division. Super creative. Love that. Plus, they've been teasing who's going to show up when the lights go out. Been a really cool feature that they've had every Thursday with the free agency the way it is. I'm intrigued. I don't have a guess, but I am intrigued to see who. And that's on TNA's Rebellion, and that's coming up tonight. I know you're a big fan of Nick Nemeth. How you feeling about Nick against Moose on the pay-per-view tonight?
That's a great match. Like Moose is great. I would say that Moose is probably one of those guys that deserves to be. Okay, let me rephrase this. Let me start over. It would be great to see Moose in WWE, but I don't think Moose necessarily needs WWE. And let me be clear, because TNA is its own successful thing. Is it as big as WWE? No, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I don't want to take a dump on TNA. That's not what I'm saying. But Moose, fantastic talent. Going against Nick Nemeth, I'm a big Nick Nemeth guy. Would love to see him go over. He looks like a champion. He acts like a champion. He wrestles like a champion. Give me Nick Nemeth all day long.
Tomorrow night, AEW Dynasty. The Bucks are going to take on FTR for the tag titles in a ladder match. That right there on the surface, that has the potential to be a knockout match.
Yeah.
However, I think the controversy that Tony and AEW has created for themselves is really kind of overshadowed what the match actually is. Two big matches with a lot on the line, though. AEW women's title. We got Thunder Rosa taking on your girl, Toni Storm. Mm-hmm. Thunder's mic work last week, absolutely incredible. It cut through the drama and black cloud of AEW right now. And how could Thunder not? She has a voice that pierces brick walls. I mean, she has the attitude and lives the attitude day in, day out, her real life character. You often hear, like Stone Cold talked about it, that was him just turned up to 11. Rock said the same thing. I think Thunder Rosa this is Thunder turned up to 11 when you see her on TV. I wouldn't hate to see her have a run again, though, with the women's title after being injured last time and having to relinquish that title and never really seeing anything much from her after that. I know she took a while to heal, but now she's back. And the AEW world title, Samoa Joe and Swerve Strickland. Whoa, that dark cloud I was talking about, that seems to cling to the letters AEW. And it's kind of pushed this match backward some, although the controversy not directly related to him. I love Joe. He's one of my favorites for sure. But man, there's no denying, if there's any swell with AEW right now, it's whose house? Swerve's house. Swerve is hot. Although I'm not sure what he's doing with this makeup thing. It looks like he's always tired. Besides the point. So it's likely in my book that Swerve walks out of Dynasty, the new AEW world champion. Looking on the surface of these, Michael, how are you feeling about these matches?
Great.
Anyone stand out?
When you look at this card, I'll speak about the card in general and then some specifics, but this card is pretty stacked. I mean, even in situations where you've got who mainstream wrestling would consider lesser known people, it's partnered up with people who are a little bit more known. We've talked about in the past that AEW has all this just incredible, just worldwide talent, especially with a lot of people that they're bringing over across the pond, but maybe a lot of mainstream or continental US wrestling fans don't really know them. This card has done a really great job of setting up good matches with some more known names with some not known names, but still famous. All that to say, the Joe Swerve Strickland match, that's going to be one to watch. I think there's a lot there. I'm actually going to go against you and say I think Joe's going to retain. I think they're going to sit on Swerve for a minute, if I'm being honest. The other one that I was looking at, where I'm pulling up my list here because I short-term memory. Will Ospreay, Daniel Bryan.
Oh yeah.
Do you even really need to say anything else?
Not much.
I mean, there's a lot going on there. I think a sleeper match though is the Roderick Strong Kyle O'Reilly match. Now, I'm gonna say something a little more negative, and then I'm gonna bring it back to positive. Character-wise, they have not hit the same way that, in my opinion, they did in NXT and WWE. When they were doing the Undisputed Era, and even when they broke apart before a bunch of injuries started happening and stuff, they were hitting on all cylinders in WWE NXT. I feel like some of it was copy and paste. However, regardless of that, these two guys are super, super good at what they do. And so this match to me is going to be the sleeper match in terms of something that you're just going to walk away from going, wow, that was really cool to see. So
copy and paste without the same machine behind it. But man, I'm excited for both of these pay-per-views. If you happen to watch them, want to tweet along, you follow me at the AntMan. I typically do that during pay-per-views or premium live events. If you're on pay-per-view, it's called a pay-per-view. If you're on Peacock, we're streaming somewhere else. It's a PLE, I guess. I don't know. We're excited that you hung out with us a little bit this morning. Always fun to check in and talk a little wrestling Saturday morning. It's taken the place of cartoons for me. From when I was younger. So good to hang out with you guys. Michael, obviously always good to hang out with you and talk wrestling, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Good to have you back and continuing to heal up better.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
For Michael Glavin, I'm the AntMan. That does it for this week on the WrestleChat Podcast. Thanks for hanging out.